Charting Toward Intimacy covers mature topics. Listener discretion is advised.
What do you do when sex is completely off the table and there's no end in sight? In this episode, we are going to confront the pain and isolation of long-term abstinence, whether it's due to a high-risk pregnancy, illness, painful sex, anything along those lines. And we're going to talk about how long-term abstinence can actually be a path to deeper connection. Welcome to Charting Toward Intimacy, the podcast for Catholic women that helps you improve your sex life, strengthen your marriage, and embrace God's design for love. My name is Ellen Holloway, and let's get started.
I want to talk to you guys about long-term abstaining right now. And I'm not talking about like when you're abstaining to avoid pregnancy and you're abstaining for, 2 to 3 weeks out of every cycle. That is short-term abstaining. I want to talk about long-term abstinence when, let's say, you have a high-risk pregnancy and you need to abstain for the rest of the pregnancy. Maybe you have a medical diagnosis that requires that you abstain from all sex. Maybe one of you is sick or injured, and it makes sex uncomfortable or impossible. Or maybe you're experiencing painful sex and you're working through painful sex right now, and so sex is off the table until you find some healing and find some relief. And I want to talk about a couple of things, because something that I hear a lot or see a lot in Facebook groups when someone is looking ahead to or is in the midst of a season of long-term abstinence, they'll say something along the lines of like, well, God wouldn't want this to happen to my marriage. Like God wouldn't want me to suffer in this way. God wouldn't do this to me. Like people tell me that sex is good and holy and like important for a marriage. And so obviously God wouldn't want us to be in a season where we are depriving ourselves of sex. And here's the thing, that is utter crap. I'm just going to say it as it is. That right there is utter falsehood. Suffering is a part of the human condition. We are fallen humans and we will suffer. We will. And your suffering, yes, might in fact involve long-term abstinence from sex. And this is coming from a personal spot right now because I'm in one of those situations. Not necessarily going to tell you which one, but no, I'm not pregnant. But I'm in a season of long-term abstinence and we have literally no idea when it will end. And it sucks and we're suffering. But also, this is the best thing for our marriage right now. It is the best thing for our marriage right now. And the reason that I know that is because God is allowing us to go through it right now. I know that this is what our marriage needs. And if you are in a season of long-term abstinence, then it is what your marriage needs as well. And no, your marriage does not need sexual pleasure separated from the full sexual act. It never does, because that is not the way that it was designed. It is against natural law. No, this isn't just going against some old celibate, bishop or priest who stated something thousands of years ago. No. Doing something like that, seeking out sexual pleasure outside of the full sexual act, is against the natural law, the natural design of our bodies, of sex, of what sex is meant to be, what sex should be. I think a lot of times people go to St. Paul and they're like, oh, well, St. Paul says that you shouldn't deprive your spouse except, when mutually agreed upon for a time for prayer. Can we stop taking scripture out of context? Like, oh my gosh, read the whole book in which he is talking about that. and learn the historical context in which he is talking about that, and you will realize that what 95% of the people who pull out that scripture verse, what they're talking about, not what St. Paul meant. St. Paul is talking about that sex isn't a weapon, right? We're not supposed to withhold sex as a way of gaining control over our spouse. He's talking about how marriage is a bond between two human beings who are equal helpmates, right? How marriage is actually pointing us back to the primordial sacrament that exists in Adam and Eve in the garden when they were made as mutual helpmates, when it wasn't good that Adam was alone. St. Paul is explaining that like no one is above the other in sex. I mean, in marriage. St. Paul is explaining that no one is above the other, right? There isn't, one member of the marriage, husband or wife, is not to like hold things over the other, not weaponize sex. He uses sex as this example here. But like, we're not weaponizing things. You're equal helpmates. And that things like this need to be mutually agreed upon. So long-term abstinence, yeah, it might not feel like it's mutually agreed upon because it feels like it's put on you a lot, especially in the case of like a medical diagnosis that requires abstinence from sex, right? The pregnancy thing, like that can feel very like it's just put on me. Like we're not choosing to abstain. But I mean, you are. Because the option is going against medical advice and potentially hurting yourself, hurting the other. I'm not saying you should, but I'm saying you have the option. You have the option of disagreeing and doing something else. I don't recommend it. Listen to what your doctor says. If you need to be in a period of abstinence, be in a period of abstinence. But like you do have a choice. And it's something that you are both choosing together. Basically, I want to speak in to also when you're looking ahead and there is no end point in sight, or the end point just feels so far away. Like maybe it's the beginning of your pregnancy and you're like, wow, I'm going to have to abstain for like 8 more months. Loss of hope is one of the enemy's best tools. He loves it when we lose hope. Hope is one of God's greatest gifts. So when we can recognize that loss of hope, that feeling of despair, is a tool of the enemy, then we can take this burden, we can take this cross, and we actually can offer it to God. And we can ask him to lighten our load. We can ask him to heal us. Miraculous healing is not out of the question here. It's not. But maybe it won't happen to you. And that's also okay because we're learning something through this. God is allowing this to happen in our lives so that we can grow in greater relationship with him. One of the best ways to learn how to grow in better relationship with God is to grow in better relationship with your husband. Sex is the fruit of a deeply intimate relationship. And so if sex is off the table, you've got an awesome opportunity to work on intimacy and grow in intimacy. Sex is saved for marriage. When we're preparing for marriage, when we're dating someone, we're learning about them and we're growing in intimacy. And if we grow in intimacy enough, then we decide, yeah, this is the person that I want to spend the rest of my life with. So There absolutely is growth in intimacy outside of sex. Sex does not equal intimacy. And I don't want you to take this and just be like, oh, Ellen's saying that it's easy. This is just a great time to grow in intimacy. This is like you're dating again. No, but also yes. It is like you're dating again because sex is off the table. But also it's not like you're dating again because you're married. There are very different things. You're still sleeping in the same bed. You're still living in the same house. You're still parenting the same kids. You're still, I don't know, everything else that married couples do, right? You are on a different level of intimacy with your spouse than you ever would be with someone you were dating. Sex being off the table does not mean that your marriage should suffer. And if you're feeling suffering from your marriage, and maybe that's not quite the right wording because it is suffering. I mean, you are suffering, but your marriage shouldn't fall apart because of a lack of sex. Yeah, it might be hard. It is suffering, right? But this should be an opportunity for you guys to cling together even more strongly because you don't have sex to kind of like mask, kind of put a Band-Aid over maybe cracks in your intimacy. You don't have that anymore. And so now those cracks become huge chasms. And we can just really recognize that that's actually a huge gift from God. Because sex should not be the glue holding our marriage together. And if it is, then that's bad. Because when abstinence comes up, then our marriage falls apart. And we don't want that. Your marriage is so much deeper and so much stronger than sex. And so let's embrace those cracks and let's work on filling them. And let's work together. And you sit down with your husband and you say, yeah, this sucks. This really, really sucks that we are in a season of long-term abstinence. I hate it. Be honest. Be honest with God. It's okay. You don't have to like it. But we can embrace it. We have an invitation to embrace it. When we read about the great saints, they looked at their suffering and they just embraced it and thanked God for it. And they were so happy, joy-filled maybe is more the right word. They were filled with joy to be given the opportunity to suffer with Christ. Wow. Take that one to a holy hour, right? A couple of weeks ago, I was in a coaching session for myself. I get coaching because I think it's amazing. And I was talking about this issue that I'm dealing with right now. And I burst into tears when I it was first revealed to me about how I could thank God for being allowed to suffer this and like embrace this suffering and how I want to be a saint. And that is what the saints did. Is that they just like embraced these opportunities for suffering with joy. Man alive, that's hard. Because I have to be honest with you guys, all I want to do is complain all day long. And that's pretty much all I do is complain about the situation that I'm in. And it sucks. But if I can even find one moment in the day to thank God for allowing me to suffer, that's helping me grow in holiness. That's helping me grow in relationship with God. So if you're in one of these seasons, I want to challenge you this week to find one moment, just one moment each day, to thank God for allowing you to suffer this.
Thanks so much for listening. If you have ever gotten any value from this podcast, could you do me a favor really quick? Go into the podcast app that you are listening in, and if it gives you an option to rate and review, please rate and review this podcast. It helps us so much in reaching new listeners and spreading the word about this podcast. Thanks so much for listening.